Welcome to Shift and Sustain a Positive Mindset podcast. Today, let's talk about values.
So what is a value? A value is something that you hold as important.
So with Vaisakhi coming up, let's revisit the Chardi Kala topic with Mandeep.
So for me, Chardi Kala, I would define it as ascending optimism.
You applied Chardi Kala in practice.
It was last week. I was cycling in the Himalayas. So grateful to see almost a pause in the road, which reminded me that I'm not alone.
So today I have with me Dr. Mandeep Rai, who's an author of The Values Compass, What 101 Countries Teach Us About Purpose, Life, and Leadership. Mandeep speaks about values, building company culture, progressing through career, and much more. Welcome, Mandeep.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So in December, we did an episode on Guru Gobind Singh Ji's Gurpurab on Chardi Kala, in which we shared how many Sikhs translate Chardi Kala and what it means to them. And some of the definitions that came out were positive attitude or ascending energy. Some described it as being in high spirits or having an attitude in life that is positive and optimistic. So with Vaisakhi coming up, let's revisit the Chardi Kala topic with Mandeep. I would like to start with the first question. You talk a lot about values. Do you see Chardi Kala as a value for Sikhs?
That's a great question. So let's first define what is Chardi. I think everyone has their own personal definition because Sikhi is such a personal, I wouldn't even call it a religion. I would say it's more of a faith. And with any faith, it's your own relationship, your own interpretation, and how you want to build it into your life. So for me, Chardi Kala, I would define it as ascending optimism. Is this kind of optimism that's even more optimistic than your normal form of optimism. It's like a upward spiraling vortex. Is that a value? Absolutely. Is optimism a value? Yes. So what is a value? A value is something that you hold as important, that you value, that is important to you, that motivates you, that inspires you. And for some people, that could be the value, right? The value of money. For other people, it might be the value of seva. For other people, it might be the value of perspective. And I think optimism comes within that brand or bracket. Like optimism gives you a different perspective, a different lens. It's almost like you can't respond, you can't necessarily change what's happening around you, but you might be able to, or hopefully you can change your response to it. And that's immediately the benefit of this tool of Chardi Kala.
Thank you. What is your first memory, or when did you first hear about Chardi Kala?
That's such a brilliant question because I almost feel as though it's so ingrained in Sikhi and our culture as well as our faith. I'm not sure I can even recollect my first. Well, let me describe to you where I think I could have first heard it. So I grew up in a very Saxon white village and town and city and part of the country and then part of the world, like in Gloucestershire, which is basically next to Wales, a very rural part of England. And there was no Gurdwara there. There were no Sikh Sangat, there was no community, there was no even brown person, or actually even an ethnic minority, no black, no Chinese, no brown, no one apart from kind of this, white Anglo-Saxon community that I just described. So I don't think it was in my everyday upbringing that I heard the word or even understood the concept. I think we used to go to a Gurdwara whenever we'd get to a big multicultural city. So whether that be in London or in Birmingham or in Manchester, most often it would be Birmingham because that was the closest to Gloucestershire. But I don't think I heard it there either. Maybe I had come across it. I think I almost knew more about Buddhism than I knew about Sikhi growing up. But at the age of 14, I was lucky enough to go to India with one of my grand uncles, Dilbagh Singh. And I think maybe I could have heard it then because I learned a lot more about our faith. That was my first time that I ever visited Harmandir Sahib. And the first time I ever really got to immerse myself in what is Sikhi, what is Punjab, who are we, where do we come from? But since then, I feel as though it's in my every single day. So I guess it's very infectious. Once you get it or understand it or utilize it, then why would you let it go?
Can you share perhaps a time where you applied Chardi Kala in practice beyond the words? Something perhaps you were going through and you said, you know what, I'm in Chardi Kala.
So I think when you say a time when you practiced it, it almost feels like, I mean, my immediate thought would be a difficult time when I actually had to use it and embody it. And an immediate time that comes to mind was last week. I was cycling for charity for the British Asian Trust in the Himalayas. And it's the Himalayas, right? It's not Holland. It's not flat. It is very, very, very mountainous. And sometimes the inclines were, you know, this gradient, and sometimes they were that steep. And we woke up at 4 a.m. We'd be on the bike for maybe 6 to 8 to 10 hours a day, day after day. My aim was to cover 250 kilometers within just a few days. So it was very intense. And there were times when I thought, I'm not sure I'm going to get through this. And in those moments, I had to actually bring in Chardi Kala. And in those moments, I guess, how do you do that? One way is to smile, whether you feel like smiling or not. So look, imagine this, you're on not even Punjabi roads, but Himachal, like windy roads, which are just as busy as any other road in India when it's peak time. So once it gets to, you know, as soon as the bazaars start opening, as soon as people start functioning, it is busy, especially busy because the roads are so narrow and so windy. And there are times when a bus will take the corner and you feel like you're going to be hit by a bus, or that the bus is going to fall off the cliff. And you are in the bottom of the chain on the road system. So every bus, everything, the motorcycle, we're on little pedal bikes, you know? So the motorcycle, the car, the bus, the truck, the lorry, everything is pushing its way past you, and you are irrelevant. And then the gun, the cow, the sheep, the donkey, the person, person crossing the, everyone up, they also have right of way. So the number of near misses, like very close accidents, where I was one of 23, where us 23 riders nearly lost our lives. There were several in this short trip of maybe 5-6 days. And every single time we nearly lost our life, but just about didn't. Of course, you're in Chardi Kala, right? Because, but even to get there, every single time there's a hairy moment. You're just grateful that moment wasn't the end of you. So I think gratitude leads to Chardi Kala. Being aware of the small things as well as the big things leads to Chardi Kala. There's this one moment when I was on the road where out of nowhere there's some Sikh person was being remembered at a jagga. So it wasn't a gurdwara, but there was a khanda outside. And I got off my bike, I walked up these steeps and went to this jagga. And it was like remembering someone who had maybe done a lot of seva. This is just what I'm assuming. Maybe a martyr. Anyway, I made that it was like, it could have been Harmandir Sahib for me. I was just so grateful to see like almost a pause in the road, which reminded me that I'm not alone. So that also brings Chardi Kala. So it's a very good question. And I think I invoke it or utilize it all the time. Last week and the week before and the week before that. And today.
My last question for you is for Sikh youth that are growing outside of India who may not hear this term, how would you encourage them to explore Chardi Kala or even the value exercise that you speak about? The 15-minute exercise, I've done a version of that with under Deepak Chopra's transformational coaching program. What would be your message?
So I would say the aim of the exercise or the values compass tool, and indeed Mr. Dr. Deepak Chopra has endorsed every copy, because I think it's so fundamental to our work, our well-being, our emotional, psychological, and therefore physical growth and spirit. The aim is to basically figure out what are the values that are going to have you in Chardi Kala, you in your peak state, in your best state. For everyone, it is slightly different. For some people, it might be focusing on excellence and having a really high standard. For some people, it might be the exact opposite and being able to be free and not having any standards and metrics. For some, it might be to be in company and in sangat. And for other people, it might be to have focused time and not to have so many distractions. So you can see, even right there and then, I've shown you different opposites that are still valuable and are still important, but yet they're opposites. Equally, any value in extreme can become cumbersome or bothersome or difficult or have a shadow. So for example, if you're all about love, sometimes you can give so much of yourself that there's very little left. And then you go through highs and lows. Or if you're all about anything actually in extreme, won't serve you. Even seva in extreme won't serve you. So it's worth knowing a balance of values. Firstly, what are your values? Secondly, deliberately only choosing 5, something that's kind of manageable. Thirdly, to prioritize them, because if they're all equally important, it becomes really hard to make decisions. And I call it a compass because it's a tool to help you get from all the possible values in the world to your selected few. And it's an invaluable exercise. You're right. It can be really short. It can only take 15 minutes. Why would you not give those 15 minutes to yourself and go through this and do it? And indeed, do it with people who really know and love you, and do it for them too, because you will know them better. They will know you better, and you'll build much stronger relationships. And life does lead to greater success, fulfillment, and satisfaction.
Thank you. Yeah, she ended with a wonderful word, fulfillment. And that again reminds me of Deepak's program where you do a purpose exercise. And the point is to find what is your dharma, what is your ultimate purpose, and then how can you live your purpose. And one of your talks that I listened to mentioned that we need to understand our values and then live them. And if we are not living them, if we're not making the decisions what we want to be known for, then we are likely not prioritizing those values. Is this an exercise that's available in your book or online?
Yes, it's absolutely available in the book, but also if you're more into games, there's a card game. Whatever form you're into, we have that version. So do seek it out, the Values Compass, and just to kind of build on and complete what you had just said about dharma and values. Essentially, may I read one quick quote from the book? This will kind of summarize it, I hope. So it says, your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions, and your actions become your habits. Your habits become your values, and your values become your destiny. The reason I mention that is because your values, when it's at that level of becoming your destiny or your dharma, you can see why it's so important. It's the foundation upon which you then build. So to get your values right, all the other pieces fall into place. Your dharma, your purpose, and therefore your words, actions, deeds, how you think, what you think, all falls into place. Your habits, etc. So it's worth doing.
Thank you so much, Mandeep. And I highly encourage everyone to definitely look at the book and do the values exercise in whichever way you find it. And it's really fulfilling, especially to know your dharma, knowing your purpose, knowing and then living it and seeing whether you're aligned or not. That is one of my favorite quotes because my Nanaji used to always repeat that again and again. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you so much.